You are listening to the Wyn Thomas File.
And time for another guest on the Wyn Thomas File, and that is Kathy Biggs and her book, Attention All Shipping. Thanks for your company today.
Thanks, Wyn. Thanks for having me. Brilliant.
So, Grace comes home to her elderly father who's suffering from Alzheimer's, who says a woman has visited him. Can you tell us who that woman is?
Well, she's actually a young woman. Yeah. And of course, when Jack, that's Grace's father, first announces that somebody's been to see him, she doesn't really take it seriously. But of course, a young woman who's called Marlin, and she's looking for her own father, who she believes to be Jack's son, Michael. The problem is Michael was drowned 20 years earlier. So it's impossible.
Rightio. Yep, you're right. Yep. So one character is Shirley. Who's Shirley?
Shirley's the carer. Shirley is Jack's carer. And early on in the story, she's in a spot of trouble because she's missed a visit, which has meant that Grace has come home from work and found Jack in a bit of a state, wet. The fires, the Rayburn's gone out. He's not had his dinner. So Shirley is Jack's carer.
Right, okay. Now, Grace's mother, Verna, is dead, isn't she? She passed away.
So, yes. Grace's mother, Wenna, passed away, several years earlier.
What was their relationship like?
Grace and Wenna?
Yeah.
Not. Wenna was very sensible and very common sense, if you like. And they didn't always see eye to eye. Yeah, she found, Grace went off, of course, not with a local farmer when she got married. She got married to somebody who wasn't local, who wasn't a farmer. And when I kind of thought that was Grace getting a bit above herself.
Right, okay. So, so you mentioned that Michael drowned 20 years ago.
Yes.
But Jack, his father, is still waiting for his son to return from sea, isn't he?
Yes, he is. Jack and Wenna never really accepted that Michael had drowned, which I think is probably a common thing when there's nobody to bury or to mourn properly. So for an awful long time, they scoured the Cardigan Bay and all up and down that coast, hoping for some evidence that he might be alive, or at least some evidence of what had happened to him. But they didn't find anything. So over the years, they just had to come to accept it. And of course, then, as Jack got a lot older and developed dementia, he wasn't sure one way or another what the situation was.
Now, quite early in the book, Jack disappears, doesn't he? Tell us about that. Where does he go?
When he disappears in Whitby, you mean?
Yeah, not at Whitby. It's the early part of the book he disappears, doesn't he?
Oh, well, he disappears, yes. So the day after Shirley has missed her appointment, Grace is at work. She's given Shirley a bit of a lecture, if you like. So she's very surprised to get a telephone call from Shirley next lunchtime when she's at her desk at work. And Shirley tells her that Jack's not there. She's got there to make his dinner and he's not at home. So Grace goes flying back. And Shirley's quite right, he's not there. And of course, as you read on a little bit further in the book, you find out where he is.
Yep. We know who he meets up with. Yes, indeed. Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
We'll leave that one. Yeah. Okay, we'll leave that one sit. Okay. But, Marlin has got some photographs, hasn't he, which also causes a bit of a disturbance of Michael. So why had she's got photographs? So you need to look into that as well. Which kind of stimulates that journey which takes part then in the book, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's the story that Malin brings with her doesn't convince Grace at all, but the things that she has in her pocket, that's a different story, and it forces Grace to reassess whether Michael is alive or not, and whether this girl has actually got the story straight, to the point that she decides, all right then, I'll go along with this and take it a bit further and see what happens.
Yeah, but she's a bit withdrawn, because obviously it's a guy who's got Alzheimer's and doesn't always live in the real world, does he?
That's right, yes, and she's not quite sure, because Jack is a handful to manage anyway at home, so the thought of handling him on a kind of road trip, gives her pause for thought, let's put it that way.
Let's stop there and say, attention all shipping is obviously the weather forecast, or the shipping forecast,
yes.
And Jack is looking on that for a certain part of the shipping forecast to see if Michael is in that shipping forecast. Is that right?
Well, the important thing in the book about the shipping forecast is to do with settling Jack down at night time, because once it comes to bedtime, Jack perks up a bit. So, Grace has had to kind of think of some clever idea to solve that. And she's introduced the habit, if you like, of them both lying in bed and listening to the shipping forecast together. It's a recording, it's not the nightly one, because she daren't risk a bad shipping forecast and setting Jack off worrying. Mm-hmm. So she uses the same recording every night, and generally speaking, it does the trick, and Jack falls to sleep afterwards. So that's where the shipping forecast comes in.
It's better than soft music, I suppose. Yeah, okay. Of course, there's many kind of disturbance between Grace and Marlin. They don't always get on with each other, do they? There's a lot of cross swords in that relationship, isn't there?
In which relationship?
Between Grace and Marlin, there's a kind of cross swords now and again. Yeah.
I think what it is for Grace is that she's only really just managing all the things that she's juggling. She's got a full-time job, she's got the farm to look after, plus she's got Jack. So the introduction of a young girl who's obviously fairly needy herself, it doesn't sit comfortably at first with Grace. Yeah.
So a big part of the book is this trip has been arranged and going to different parts to try and find Michael, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
There's one bit actually they get stopped by the police. Why did they get stopped by the police? Would you mind just revealing that bit?
They get stopped by the police because the camper van that they're travelling in belongs to Malin's mum, V, who is a very, very feisty character. And Marlin has taken the camper van without V's permission, because V is doing good works in the Calais migrant camps. V's off there doing good works, and when she comes back home to Bristol, finds the camper van missing, she puts two and two together and decides it's been stolen, reports it to the police, and hey ho, there it is, travelling up the Welsh coast. And that's why it gets stopped. That's why they get stopped.
Well, you use some lovely areas of Wales. I know you're quite fond of those areas of Wales. Haverfordwest Harbour and Aberystwyth, all those lovely views of Aberystwyth over the sea. So it's a lovely book to read as well, because also you've got lovely views in it as well. I suppose the other thing I've got to say, really, not to go too further into this, is that do they find Michael in question? Will they find him? That's where we have to read the book to find out, don't we?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, how will it all end for everybody? Yeah, that's the big question.
There we go. So that's much been my guest today. That's where we leave it. And
that was lovely, Wyn.
The book is Kathy Biggs, and is Attention All Shipping. And it's got a lovely coloured cover as well. Beautiful.
Fabulous. Thanks very much. Cheerio.
Cheerio.
Bye.